Ohio State versus Texas in the Cotton Bowl. Let's talk about what to watch for when that game is played the next Friday and who I think is going to win in this early look of Ohio State versus Texas. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching the #1 college football show, welcome. Hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, like this video, and leave us a comment below. Let me know, who do you think is going to win this one, Ohio State or Texas? If it's your 1,000th time watching the #1 college football show and you still haven't subscribed, let's get on that. As 60% of the people that watch this show more than once aren't subscribed to it, and we're pushing toward 126,000 subscribers as we're getting into the college football playoff semifinals of what has been a wild month of meaningful playoff football. For the first time in the 155-year history of the sport, we get to play a tournament. And it has been up and down. We're going to see the seeding get changed because we didn't like watching Boise State get, handled by Penn State, let's put it kindly, or Notre Dame handling Indiana, or even Ohio State stomping a mud hole in Tennessee, walking dry, or even Texas running for 292 against Clemson. Georgia being able to figure out what it is that they're going to do against Penn State is going to be a lot of fun. All right, so if you watched the Fiesta Bowl, you know that Penn State mirrors, in many respects, what you could expect to see when Texas is doing its best, right? They got a tandem set of tailbacks that they like to get after it. However, they're deficient at quarterback. And frankly, outside of Tyler Ward and Trey Wallace, maybe Omari, you don't really have that much offensively. It's the defense that's been showing out for them. I'm looking at an Ohio State team that played against that Penn State team and didn't allow them to score an offensive touchdown. Didn't allow it. Now, granted, this is after their back is against the wall and they had the loss against Oregon in Eugene. But basically, since that loss in Eugene, you've seen a totally different defense that Jim Knowles has put out there. They've been really good at disguising what they're doing and great against Oregon in the first half. Particularly, Dylan Gabriel didn't know what he was seeing because the looks that apparently he was studying on film were not the looks that Jim Knowles and that defense were given. And Caleb Downs was everywhere all the time. Cody Simon was everywhere all the time. They got 8 sacks to the quarterback, in large part because they became more dynamic and they started to let their pass rushers eat and they let their safeties play downhill. What would worry me about playing against Ohio State if I'm Texas isn't what they didn't do against Penn State or what they even did, or even, frankly, what they did against Oregon and Tennessee. It's what my offensive line showed against Arizona State's defensive line, which was next to nothing. They could not run the ball to save their lives against Arizona State. Up until this game, the only team that really stopped Texas from running the football was Georgia. Georgia, who allowed 29 rush yards in their first meeting and 31 in their second. And you got a hard time getting to 100 yards against this Arizona State front. That's credit to Brian Ward, but my goodness, man, Arizona State is not Georgia. To say nothing of, you got the best offensive or defensive lineman in the country at left tackle in Kelvin Banks. And yet and still, they're still able to get after you, and they're knocking Quinn Ewers off the spot. He played his best football inside the last 2 minutes and the first 2 overtimes of the game, but you're going to need all of that for 4 quarters to beat this Ohio State team. They put up 42 against the Tennessee team that hadn't given up that many all year. They put up 41 against an Oregon team that struggled to get on the board, was desperate to get on the board in the first half, needing to go for 2. They're down 34-8 at halftime because the Ohio State machine came out firing on both sides. That offensive line that was supposed to be makeshift is makeshift, where you move the left guard, Donovan Jackson, out to left tackle. You've had to play musical chairs with Seth McLaughlin going down, and yet and still they were able to give Will Howard the kind of protection necessary for him to go for 3 bills in a second straight game to get off to a fast start, because that offensive line also allowed for number 4 and number 2 to get downfield against them, for which I don't see Texas having a real solution, except to say, where Jeremiah Smith is, Jahdae Barron's got to travel, and Andrew Mukuba's got to be your safety over the top. You have to put your best 2 secondary players over the top of wherever he is. You cannot afford to play man coverage against Jeremiah Smith. You can't. You cannot afford to play man coverage against Mega Buka. You can't. Which means you're going to have to be elite in run defense, because what you're going to show me is a light box. I'm going to force you, if I'm Chip Kelly or Ryan Day, to show me a light box. I still might not use it because I think I got Thanos with the gauntlet out there at number 4, right? And I got Captain America with a beard out there at number 2. I've got the Avengers and Thanos on my team. What do you got? You've got, I think, a great pass rush when it's there, right? Baron Sorrell, he can get after people. Alfred Collins, he can get after people. Trey Moore, who was great last year, slowly coming on. And Colin Simmons, my God. They've got dudes that can come after you. Anthony Hill can play some of his best football right now, and that might be enough. It's the best defense that Ohio State's going to see all year. That is true. That's 100%. Pete Kwiatkowski's going to have something. I just don't know that he's going to have enough. Because now that Ohio State is playing to its level, you're seeing there are two ways that Ohio State loses, or excuse me, there are two ways that Ohio State wins football games, loses football games. One, they beat themselves, like they did running into the teeth of Michigan, like they did not knowing the situation at the end of the game against Oregon on the road. Or two, they just beat that ass. That's what it's been. If they get out of their own way and they play the kind of supremely perfect football they played for the better part of 4 quarters against Oregon, cancel Christmas. It's over. We're canceling Christmas in January because it's over. That's how good they are. They didn't have not one penalty until late. They didn't give up a single sack. They didn't turn over the football. That's remarkable. If they play that kind of clean football, you're just not going to get a chance to come back. You're going to get 1 or 2 stops if you're Ohio State. That's going to be it. That's all you're going to need. That's a 14-point cushion right there if Ohio State is playing at this caliber offensively, moving the football like I think they can. What else worries me about Texas is they haven't had their offense, passing offense and rushing offense in sync basically since A&M. Like that's you've been either good at one, throwing the football, or good at another, running the football. The thing about Steve Sarkisian that I don't think enough people give him credit for, and I'll take it back to my first meeting with him at Big 12 Media Days back when Texas was in them. He loves to run the football. As a matter of fact, when he came in, Bijan Robinson was still at Texas. And I had talked to him about Mac Jones and what that offense could do at Alabama in 2020. And he said, what people don't understand is everywhere I go, I have 1,000-yard backs. I like to run the football. I want to run the football. They use misdirection so that they can get Quintravion Wisener out in space. They can get Jaden Blue out in space. That's why both of those guys have combined for damn near 80 catches this season, and they can run after the catch. Now, Jaden Blue's put the ball on the floor a couple of times, but those are two tailbacks you need to get going. You can only do that with that offensive line doing what it is, but against this defensive front, can you gash them? Can you create a space for Quintravion Wisener to get to the second level? And if you can, which Quinn Ewers are we going to see? Because when Quinn Ewers is playing to his level as a first-round quarterback, you saw that on the 4th down play where they had to have it, and he threw a touchdown pass. You saw that at the start of the game when he's got the script, and my goodness, 2 plays, played a fight song. That's explosive. That's what you are going to have to do to beat Ohio State. You're going to have to hit the explosives. You're not going to be able to matriculate the ball down the field like you want to because I don't trust you to not make any mistakes. I simply don't. I think Caleb Downs is better than DeAndre Moore. It's better than Matthew Golden. I'm saying it. Now, if I am Texas, I'm lining Matthew Golden up against Denzel Burke, and I'm going to say, hey, dog, go to work. That's the weak link in this defense. Even now, that's the guy to pick on. Whoever you want to put out there, whether it be Silas Bolden, Isaiah Bolden, or Isaiah Bond, or Matthew Golden, or DeAndre Moore, you have to give those guys opportunities when they get one-on-ones against Denzel Burke. And if you are Jim Knowles, you got to be ready to roll somebody over the top to help that man out. He's not the player that he was last year. He's just not. He's talking a lot of noise, but he ain't been living up to the hype here. That defense, though, is. That defense is playing like the best defense in football. Usually what it comes down to in games like this one is which team can afford to make the most mistakes wins. We saw that with Texas, Arizona State. Arizona State could not afford to make mistakes, and they couldn't allow the referees to get involved. They did. You can't put it in their hands. You've got to go get a kicker before you get to the Peach Bowl. You have to. You can't go in there wondering if your kicker's going to be any good. That's the other reason why I don't trust Texas. If they got to put it in Burt Auburn's foot, he's going to miss it. You just chalk that up now. That man has been 50-50 in the friendly confines of the Mercedes-Benz Dome in Atlanta. He ain't it. I don't want to hear no more about him being the most prolific kicker in Texas history. Justin Tucker's the best you ever had. This dude is the best you can get? Nah, dog. You're going to have to change that one up quick, fast, and in a hurry. You're also dealing with a Texas team that doesn't have the kind of pressure on it that Ohio State does. I said this about Oregon. I'm going to say it about Texas. Ohio State has something that you can't coach. Desperation. Desperation. You don't want to fight a desperate man. You don't want to fight a desperate man. Nobody wants to fight a desperate man. A desperate man is going to do whatever it takes. He's going to prepare however he has to prepare to go win. And if you think you've gotten out, you're going to take it. This is why we advise, hey, look, you're either going to go all out or you better not go at all. It's better to stay home. It's better not to play. Ohio State burned the ships. That's what they did. They burned the ships. They said, hey, look, see that? There ain't no way home. The only way home is through. You have to win the next 2 games. Don't care who it is. You have to win the next 2 games. You have to beat Texas because they're in front of you. Then you have to beat whoever's in the national championship, and then you get to go home. That's your prize. You are Odysseus trying to make the return right now. Okay? Your woman is holding down the fort of Ithaca while the barbarians at the gate. You got all these suitors that are going, hey, we're not going to let you sit here without no king next to you for too much longer. Meanwhile, Odysseus, you with your bow and arrow, you got to make it, dog. You have work to do. You've already gone there. Now you got to get back. You got to get home. There are Buckeye fans that are thirsting for this in a way that Texas fans don't. Texas is back to being Oklahoma in this made, right? It's kind of flip reverse here. Last decade before this, Oklahoma having all this success, haven't won no national championships, make college football playoff pretty often, make the conference championship game. Now it's flipped. Oklahoma is going through its dark age phase right now. But I haven't seen the desperation from Texas I need to see. I don't see from this team an absolute need, necessary toughness to go win. There are far too many mental mistakes. They're getting away with some plays that they shouldn't. Throwing loud out patterns against the goal line. Like that sort of stupid stuff. You're dancing in the hole instead of running through it. Travion Henderson is finally playing like the dude that we saw him play like when he was a true freshman. He knows he's coming to the end. He knows he's got to do this to keep playing football in an Ohio State uniform. He knows that. And there's a whole bunch of guys on that team that know that. I don't get the sense from Quinn Ewers that he knows that. I don't get the sense from that Texas offensive line all of a sudden. Because, look, if you knew that you were up against the wall, I think we would see a better Texas team. I frankly do. I think we would see the team that beat Michigan to open the year. I think we'd see the kind of team that we think is they're capable of being. The guy that Ryan Wingo showed himself to be. The young guys they wanted. The young guys want it because they just got here and they have everything to prove. It's the older guys in Texas that I am pointing at, dog. I don't see you bleeding. And you know what? I say this to my peers often. One of the reasons that I work as hard as I do and as much as I do and grind like I do is I know what it's like to lose my job. I know what it's like to get beat, taking some personal beatings. Last 6 months. I don't wish that kind of terror on anyone. But the Buckeyes didn't wish it on themselves either. You don't wish losing to your arch nemesis 4 years in a row and have to deal with that pain. And it's not the pain of losing as much as it's the pain of you got to go see your people. And your people are going to get attacked. Because that's what people do when they're frustrated. They go look at the person that had an opportunity to change this and they blame them. And they should. They should. It is a privilege to be on that football field, man. It's a privilege to wear your parents' name on your back, to wear a whole state on your chest. And with that privilege comes the responsibility of holding up your end. There are 6 million Ohio State fans that would love nothing more than to go play on that football field because they think they can change it. They think they can make it better. They think they can go win. And if you don't do it, the only recourse they have is to remove you from that to find somebody that can because they can't. That's your responsibility. Your responsibility is to your community, just like mine is to you on this show. I don't see Texas Longhorns having that responsibility and blazing on the chest, man. They haven't suffered enough. I don't wish suffering on anyone, but that is the one way for which I know how to grow. hardship, failure. Fail again. Fail better. Have you failed enough, Texas? Did this Arizona State thing scare you straight? I don't know. Scaring straight doesn't usually work where I'm from. You got to go through it. Last week I had a homie get out of McAllister Federal Penitentiary. He called me because he remembered my number and asked me to come get him. I came and got him. He'd been away a while. And I missed him so much. And we got 2-3 hours to just talk. And the things that he told me he saw, the things that he lived through, he wouldn't wish them on his worst enemy. And he told me he was proud of me because he'd heard. He'd heard in there what I was up to. I hadn't seen this man in almost a decade. Asked me about my life, asked me about, woman who's gone now. And he told me how proud he was to go to the library when he got him back. Went to the library before they closed around Christmas. And he saw someone watching the show. Watching me at the public library. And he got to tell that person, that's my man, RJ. That's my man. That's my man, $100,000. So I wear that. I wear that everywhere I go. Get you some of that, Texas. Then talk to me. Ohio State, they got some of that. I think it's their turn.